What's up, everyone? South Florida Bourbon Guy here with another daily bit from the barrel. And today I'm going to answer a question from my friend Rico out in Coral Springs that how can bourbon, such as the examples of these two bottles in front of me, be considered bourbon if they're not finished in New American oak charred barrels? So we're going to take a couple steps back and quickly just talk about the bourbon rules, right? If you recall, bourbon has to be 51% corn. If it's got to be made in America, if it's not made in America, it's not called bourbon. There's different proof levels when it comes to distillation and barreling and bottling, but we're not even going to talk about that today. When it comes to aging and maturation, New American oak charred containers, most likely barrels. That's typically, bourbon's typically finished in barrels. But again, New American oak charred, let's just say barrels. There's different types of char levels. There's not a specific one that it has to be. But when we talk about distillers that are trying to get flavors, add different flavors to bourbon, remember, we can't add anything but water. We can't add any additives or coloring or anything like that. If you do that, it's a whiskey, it's not bourbon. So how do these distillers get these different profiles, these different flavor profiles? Now let's take a step forward and talk about the entire distillation process. At the beginning of the process, it's all about the grains, right? It's the mash bill, corn, rye, malted barley, wheat. What do they use? That's how we extract some flavors. Moving further in the distillation process, when we hit fermentation, these distillers use different yeast strains, right? And again, some of these are proprietary. For example, Four Roses uses 5 different strains, but most of your bigger distilleries, Heaven Hill, Jim Beam, they've been using proprietary yeast strains since Prohibition. They don't really divulge that. Again, adds to the flavor profile. And last but not least, kind of the conversation we're having today is about the aging and maturation, the barrels. So what happens here in the example of Angel's Triple Oak, the blue note here that's finished in French cask strengths, this Angel's Triple Oak is finished in, and I got to read it again because it's a long one, Hungarian, Chinquapin, and French oak barrels. Initially, when this bourbon spirit is made, it's finished in a New American charred oak barrel. Then they take the spirit after it ages, whatever amount of time they want, and they dump it into these different, again, Hungarian barrels, French oak barrels. They finish them. It's called secondary finishing or double finishing. And that's why you can call these bourbon, because it started with the American charred oak barrel. They finished it in these other different barrels to pull out the different flavors, again, based on what they're looking for. Hope that clears things up. Daily bit from the barrel. Thank you for following South Florida Bourbon Guy.